Welcome to the Together for Education in Ames podcast, where we have meaningful conversations on the state of our local school districts. Schools should be a place of hope for children where they can come and learn without fear of being judged and labeled. We advocate for unity in our student population and excellence in education. I'm Kira Werstein, parent and college teaching professor. Hosting today with me is
Sadrac
and Jennifer Pinto.
And today we are going to discuss the potentially damaging effects of labels on children. I said I'm a college teaching professor. One of the classes that I teach, my expertise is in sport psychology. And so we discussed the self-fulfilling prophecy primarily in the sport context, since it's sports psychology. But we take a look at how the perceptions that we have can affect our behavior. That behavior, in turn, affects how the child or the athlete, the student, thinks about themselves. Then they act on it, and it becomes this reciprocal relationship where the prophecy has been fulfilled. So if you think about it just as an individual person, have you guys ever woken up and just felt like, oh, it's going to be a bad day, and then sure enough you stub your toe, or you get cut off on your drive to work, or then you get to work and people are rude, and then you get home from work and it's like your kids are bad or they misbehave, and just it's like one bad thing after the next. So what is likely happening is we're experiencing a self-fulfilling prophecy. When that happens, when we start the day with, oh, today's going to be a bad one, because we have that expectation, and then we oftentimes behave in a way that leads to those types of events unfolding. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. To define it concisely is when a person unknowingly causes a prediction to come true due to the simple fact that he or she expects it to come true. Do you guys have siblings?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you ever, are they older? Either of you have an
Yes.
Older.
You both have older. Well, I'm the oldest, so I didn't quite have this. But so did you ever experience where a teacher or a coach, they had your older sibling, and then it's like, oh, here's another Alaman, I know what's going to happen here. I know you're kind. Yeah. I don't know, but it could have been a good thing. Could have been not quite as good. I don't know how your older siblings behaved.
We are 6 brothers, so it was it was a mix of behaviors. So it was different every single time, to be honest, because 6, I'm number 5, so maybe the other ones went through the same teacher, and we behave in a lot of very differently. So what they thought about my siblings, they got a complete opposite of me. I'm not bragging, but I was a really calm, patient, follow directions student, and my brothers were not there. So when they got me, it's like, oh no, like you say, I know they're Aleman. And then they started getting to know me. It's like, you're different. Okay.
So you're saying Aleman 1 through 4 were a little off the wall.
Yes.
And you noticed this teacher was thinking, we've got another one. And then sure enough, you're not off the wall like them. You're just kind of super chill.
Yes.
But what you're saying you noticed is when you came into that classroom, they expected another Aleman.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And eventually you changed their mind about who you are.
That's right.
But did it ever? Do you felt like they ever perhaps acted on their expectation of you to be? Were they looking for it? Perhaps.
Maybe. I was so young, so I didn't pay attention. I just knew that my parents got called to the school several times because of them, and they never called them for me. So I don't know. It was different. It was very different. Like my wife says, like, you're just very different than all of your brothers. I don't know what happened to you, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's in a good way. Yeah. So it was different, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Did you have any
I did. I had an older sister. And high school is where I would have experienced it, but no, I don't remember that at all. And I have younger siblings, but they were adopted at a much younger, like, I was older. And so we didn't go through the same school.
Okay. So
No.
I am confident we've got some listeners, and maybe even you can think about students and siblings that you had in your classroom, but I'm confident that some of our listeners are younger siblings, and when they went into their classroom, they noticed that the teacher had an expectation about them. And it's not always with siblings. It could be all kinds of things. It could be based on the way you look, or based on what you're wearing, or the expression on your face. But there can be these expectations, right? In the sport context, when I teach about this, sometimes it could be a football coach for a high school football team may have the expectation that the biggest athletes are going to be the best ones. They're going to be the strongest and the most athletic. And while on average that may be true, it is not necessarily true on the individual level. So there may be, there may be a Muggsy Bogues. Okay, that's basketball, but there, it's not always that the tallest basketball player is the best one. There's the Muggsy Bogues, and so perhaps it's this football team. The coach expects that the bigger athletes are going to be the best, so he plays the best athletes. He gives them more individualized feedback and more frequent feedback, and then the smaller athletes, he doesn't play them as well or as much. And then when they do practice their skills, he kind of just gives them nice job, and doesn't give them specific feedback. And so then when they do get in the game, they are very aware of the expectation that the coach has for them, giving them minimal feedback. And so then they are a little rusty and they don't play as well. And then that reinforces the coach's belief, right? That, yep, I knew it. Those small ones over there, or whatever the expectation was. And so what this looks like in the context of education, it can unfold in the same way. I'm going to first give, a lot of times we're talking about the Ames School District here. The Ames School District is trying to reduce these types of biases between racial groups, between socioeconomic statuses, and I commend that. We want to be aware of a bias that we might have towards any certain population, whether it's with sports or with academics or behavior or whatever it may be. The tragedy that I see within the professional development as it's been uncovered to the public and the parents is that they are then teaching the biases and reinforcing the biases. So I had a teacher send us, a teacher emailed us just last week that in their building, the goals that they have set are, here's one example, one of the goals. By the end of the 2022-23 school year, we have a goal to increase the sense of connectedness and the student map scores for students who are marginalized. And who is that? So they have in parentheses, specifically, students who received special education services or identify as Black and or qualify for free and reduced lunch. So this teacher sends me this, and it's perplexing. This teacher was troubled by it, not that she doesn't want to increase and improve scores and sense of belonging for these students, right? Mm-hmm. But it's about what is communicated with those goals and objectives. Do you guys any problems you see with that? With setting a goal, it wasn't for all students, it's for Black students, for students in special ed, for students on free and reduced lunch. So certainly it's not that, of course we want those students to have a sense of belonging and to increase their scores as well. Mm-hmm. What this teacher was concerned about is that the way that goal is written is that it communicates that there is, that all Black students are struggling, for example. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which is not the case.
Right.
Right.
There's some black students, maybe. Some black students are excelling. There's
Right.
students that are black. There's students that are Hispanic, white, Asian. In ELP, they range. The scores range.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we label in that way within our goals, it can set in place the perceptions of the teacher before they interact with the student, and how the expectations that they have, the kind of feedback they give. Have you seen anything like this in education broadly?
I haven't paid attention to those things, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I try not to see those things, no, I treat all of my students equally.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the color of their skin or where they come from. I will treat them equally. So, yeah.
So when they have a need, you teach them.
That's
When
right.
they have a question, you answer it.
Yeah.
Because that also raises the question, well, if you have a goal to raise these students' sense of belonging and scores, since you didn't have everyone listed there, are you going to treat them different with an intervention?
Right.
Right.
Is there going to be different opportunities? Are the opportunities going to be different?
How are you going to isolate that group to elevate the belonging for that group, the scores for that group, but not across the board? Yeah, so that's and then even within the definition, I don't know if you caught this. I just am always really thinking about the meaning of words. And when in this definition, it says students who are marginalized. And so I went, of course, to the dictionary to look up marginalized. And what does it say? So what is marginalized? It's a person or a group that's treated as insignificant or peripheral.
Insignificant.
So how do they measure that?
If that they're treated insignificantly?
I'm sorry.
It says students who are marginalized, and that's the definition of marginalized is students who are, it says a person or a group who is treated as insignificant or peripheral.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I would like to know how they know
Right.
students on free and reduced lunch are marginalized or they're treated that way.
Right.
They do have the Panorama survey. You had a reaction there, Jen.
Yeah.
They collect data with that on sense of belonging. So,
Yes.
what are your thoughts about that survey? I think that's where they get this data on sense of belonging.
That might be for another.
We need a new episode for that one. Okay. So, I mean, the way the questions are written, I think is what you're kind of hinting at, that the questions are leading on those surveys, and it's like I've taken the surveys, filled them out as a parent, and so it's like you can read in the questions you expect me to answer in a particular way based on how this is worded here, which is leading. It's not.
Yeah, because they take, I know, like last year in a PD day, we took all of that information and we looked at it and said, okay, how can we do this, do this to help these students? And so, yeah, they use that information to help cultivate change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then, and how about, in our last episode, we talked about equity, which by many, it's giving students what they need. My question is what students need based on their skin color? Is what they need academically. No, there is the discussion about representation in content and curriculum, and I totally support that. We should have, in the literature we're reading, it should have all different kinds of cultures and races, and It shouldn't just be, of traditional white families that are from Iowa, right? So I think that there's value. That's what makes, especially Ames, our community so rich, is that we have people from all over the world. And so having representative content is going to be valuable. I mean, that's valuable to all students, white, Asian, every race. So if that's what's meant by individualizing or bringing that sense of belonging, then certainly. But again, I still come back to, if a student is below benchmark on their MAP score, which is what this goal, this objective was listed as, do you give them a different reading intervention based on their skin color? I'm asking the educators here. I mean, you were in special ed. You had students below benchmark. Did you?
Yeah, so there's multi-tier. If students show a continuing of being below, then they would go into a tier 2 intervention. And then if that doesn't work over a significant amount of time, then they go into an IEP.
And if it doesn't work based on their scores aren't improving.
Right.
Then but what I'm hearing you say is their scores are below benchmark. We give them a tier 2 support. You don't start with, their scores are below benchmark. Let's give them a Hispanic reading intervention.
No.
You didn't have that.
No.
So I'm just wondering, how exactly will they increase the MAP scores based on skin color? Because that's how the goal's written.
Well, I don't know. With a different question, what does the skin color has to do with your academics? Like, I was a good student, and I'm brown. And if I was to grow in the U.S., I didn't grow up in the U.S., I don't know, where will they put me? Like, okay, I was one of the good performing students, but in what box will they put me there? Because I'm Hispanic, but I'm performing well. And it's not because of my skin color, it's because of the knowledge, it's because of the effort I'm putting into learning. Where do they get the skin color with the academic learning? And I don't know, that's not an answer that we have, and that's what you're wondering too.
Yeah.
Like, how do they get low academic scores with skin color?
Yeah, and
well, how?
Right.
So how are they getting these assessments that?
Yeah.
Well, it's when they take a test, you're identified as what race?
whatever race the box you
ethnicity.
check.
Okay, but you're talking about a survey, not like an academic test.
Well, the survey is for their sense of belongingness, but the MAP testing is their academic scores for.
Right, and I don't care about that one, the survey. I care about the
MAP.
academic, the MAP one. Like, how do they get that color from a MAP test?
I think that when you put your name in,
It's linked.
it's all linked.
Yep.
So it's like your name, your grade, which kind of surprises me because someone else must go in there and check that, or it's linked to their
file,
their portal or something.
their portal.
Because I would think that the child doesn't, when they start the MAP testing, they don't check the box.
We don't check the box, but it's
all linked.
It's all connected through the portal, through the school, which is also through Panorama. And those actually go into Panorama. So Panorama is not just a survey. Panorama is the platform for MAP testing, for the FAST. It all goes into that. And then that's where you get all the information on the student with their test scores, with their color. And I personally think that when they have teachers look at scores, just look at the low scores. We don't even need to know if they're a boy or girl.
Yeah.
Just look at the scores, look at the student, look at the score.
And then give a reading intervention for those who are
Based on
below.
the score.
Yeah.
And then and they do a great job of this in some of the lower grades that I've noticed with my kids. They have them in, for example, reading groups. So first grade, it was like they have the leveled reading books, A, B, C, D, and E.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you are at a A, then you're in with your peers, a little reading group, reading level A, and then you're with the B's if you're B and C, and so
that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's individualized, and I would hope that's the definition of equity, which is giving them what they need. Is a level. Someone that's at a D doesn't need to read A's, and it's inappropriate if you're an A to read the D's.
Yeah.
But it's not based on what you look like. It's based on what your academic scores are to put you in an appropriate group.
Right.
So there's a study, a famous educational study, and it's sometimes called the Pygmalion effect. It was done in the 1960s by Robert Rosenthal, and it was on actually the effects of positive self-fulfilling prophecy. So how labels can positively affect children, and how having these perceptions as the teacher or the leader ultimately influences the child's performance. So this is how they did this study. They told elementary teachers that 5 of the students in their class had been identified as academic spurters. So they were kind of like the gift. Oh, these are gifted. They're going to grow a lot this year. They've been identified. And they told them that they told the teachers that they were going to outperform their classmates throughout the rest of the year. The teachers were falsely told that that them being an academic spurter was based on testing that was done early in the year. So that really wasn't done or identified. They just told the teachers that, right? Mm-hmm. So actually these 5 students were just chosen randomly. And so there should have been no difference in the increase in their academic performance relative to the other students in the rest of the class throughout the year. However, by the end of the year, those 5 students did outperform the other students. And so why? That's the question. It's likely because this is what the authors discussed, and what they observed among the teachers is that the teachers' expectations for those children that they thought were identified as academic spurters caused them to treat those students differently. So they gave them more specific feedback instead of just like, good effort. They said specifically, those are fantastic adjectives that you used in that sentence to provide description. And they gave them more frequent feedback. They asked them more questions to prompt their engagement and so on. So the students that they had the lower expectations for when they completed their work, they gave this broad, general, vague, just kind of, good job. And so what can we conclude? What can we take away from this is that the leader, the teacher, or whether that's a coach or whomever it may be, when they have, it could be a parent, when they have an expectation for a child, oftentimes, even unknowingly, we act upon those things. And then it is observed, and this is sometimes, it's not consciously, but what we take in that information, like, oh, they're expecting me to, as the student, the athlete, the child, oh, they're expecting me to enjoy this. Oh, I'm going to make an effort to enjoy this. Or they're expecting me to learn. I'm going to try harder to learn. That's the expectation here. Mm-hmm. And so then ultimately, the prophecy, the expectation is fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
So what's the moral of the story? Is what you're getting at is when we have an expectation, why are we labeling them? Why do we have those identifiers on them? And I think it's okay to look at all the data and to look at it, but to then go to all of the teachers and to set goals and say, we are going to aim to improve the scores of the free and reduced lunch students, or only this race of students. The concern with that is the message that it communicates to the teachers. It's telling them, hey, these students are struggling. Now that's the expectation that the teacher has in their mind about that group of students. Telling them, these marginalized students here, are you seriously going to label them marginalized? It's sabotaging the DEI efforts.
Yeah.
The irony is just it's heartbreaking. So
And I feel like when you label the kids, this is something that will follow them the rest of their life. And it does more damaging than helping them. I mean, just by telling somebody this is your label, then you cannot perform, like you say, the prophecy. You cannot perform like you want to because I have a label and I know that I cannot, perform well. Like I was telling last time to the superintendent, what's her name?
Paula Vincent.
Right, like with my daughter, my wife and I do a really good job of, like speaking life, speaking, a good future over our daughter, telling her what she can be instead of like, you're biracial, you are Hispanic and white. So I don't know how far you can get, but give it your try, try your best. No, she doesn't even know the difference between the two, and we just told her like, no, you can, get whatever you want as long as you try hard and work hard. And she doesn't know anything about her skin color. Like, she's like, she knows that she's like, I'm like my dad, and I like my dad's skin, but that's all she knows about the skin color, that she likes it because it is my skin color. She doesn't know anything about because I'm this color, I'm labeled. She doesn't know about labels, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah.
And she doesn't put things in her mind that block her, to continue learning or to continue to become somebody. Like, stop the labeling. Like, you stop putting, like I said before, like it's like you put them in a box, but before you put it in a box, you put a label in them and then in the box, so you know who they are inside the box. And it causes damage, to the students.
I think so. With my daughter, when she was in first grade, she was given a label. Well, not diagnosis, which can be a label. Dyslexia, auditory processing delay, and visual processing delay. And I knew in that moment that I did not see her, and I did not speak that label into her life. I told her, this is what you have. However, this does not determine who you are.
That's right.
Or your future. And because I knew, and I'm glad that I knew what was going on so I could address it, I told her, this is what you'll need to do. You will need to raise your hand anytime you need. You'll need to advocate for yourself. So starting in first grade, I was just instilling these tips, these tools to say, okay, this is what you'll need to do so you can be successful.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen in the special ed realm that when kids are labeled with needs, special needs, parents will either say, okay, this is the label. However, this is not going to define you, and we're going to get through this, and I still expect from you.
Yep.
Or they'll say, oh, this is her issue, and this is why she acts this way, or this is why she's doing this, so it's okay. So that's how I've seen two labels.
Yeah.
And so just to say, my daughter, she's just struggling where she was in first grade, tears every night, could not add two numbers together, could not read, to just excelling in school. And she even won a speech meet towards the end of first grade because we were like, you're going to do this.
Yeah. You gave her the tools she needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't put her in that box. I didn't put her in this, oh, dyslexic and all these other things. And she still struggles with the auditory processing delay. Mm-hmm. But she's learned what to do to help her overcome that.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So,
but then if you were the other way and remind her every single time of this label, then you were going to limit, what she can do.
And if I told the teachers, please don't expect of her, please, lower your standard for her because of this. Completely, I would have a different child, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So, kind of to summarize for parents is, if we know what challenges our children have, we can give them tools accordingly. Mm-hmm. But you are not what you look like, and I don't treat you and give you an intervention or give you a curriculum because you look like this. We have a friend that is from Croatia. He says he's Serbian, and his wife's Hispanic. And he was saying recently that someone asked, well, what his son's race was. And he's I think underlying this, he's had some frustrations with just kind of what's this movement moving through our culture and all this labeling. And he said, human. Mm-hmm. That's his race, okay? Yeah. Human.
That's right.
And so what I hope that we can move towards, not only just in our district, is that, yes, as educators, we want to reduce biases, be aware that any one of us, and I would say all of us, do have expectations, but what we can do to make sure that those don't harm the kids and put in this negative self-fulfilling prophecy is to give all of them consistent feedback.
Right. And I just have a question, just for my own understanding. I never been a, regular classroom teacher. Yes, I'm a classroom teacher right now, but it's different what I teach. But if you're a classroom teacher in elementary level, so when the students are doing poorly and you meet with the parents, and let's say, because this is what we're talking about, it's a student of color. So are the teachers telling the parents, yes, he or she is not doing that well because he or she is brown?
Is that what you're saying?
Right. I mean, if we're talking about this, that the survey says that it's like the students of colors are the ones that are doing poorly, or black or Hispanic or all this. So are they telling that to the parents and like, well, it's because he's Hispanic? I'm just wondering, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, since you're labeling in the school, so are you using the label with the parents too? Or you just omitting that?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't have children that are brown. I've had children that are below benchmark in elementary. And when the teacher met with us, she just said, your child's below benchmark. She didn't, and this is what we need to do. But I don't know. Maybe it does unfold differently. I don't know. I hope not.
Right.
But sitting in on individualized education plan meetings, because that's where they come to when they are below benchmark for a long period of time. I have filled out so many, and not one time have I ever mentioned their color.
Okay.
No.
And I'm just asking this because according to the survey, that's what is the survey feeding us. It's because he or she is black. It's because he or she is Hispanic. So are we sharing this with the parents? Well, the survey says that he is or she is below benchmark because he's black or she's black. And I'm not saying that they're doing it. Don't get me wrong. But like, if the survey is telling me this, though, is this the information that I'm sharing with the parents as well? I know the answer is no. Right. But if we are not sharing that with the parents, then let's stop the labeling. Let's just stop it right there. Because if I'm okay with labeling inside the school, among teachers, among principals, among superintendent, whatever, but I'm not willing to share the label with the parents.
Gotcha. I'm with you now.
Okay? So then stop doing the label.
Yeah.
And
Period.
I've heard plenty of parents across the states say that very same thing. Do not tell my child that they can't be successful because of their color.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's where I'm going to, like, if you are not sharing that with the parents, then stop doing it inside
with the professional development, because that's
Exactly.
where this came from.
Yeah.
Is where what you're saying is, this teacher took a picture of the screen that had these goals, from they were building goals, and it has the student, like the Black students and the free and reduced lunch, but if you're not saying that, you're saying, if we don't say that publicly, then why are we just saying it within the building?
Right.
And absolutely.
If you feel like brave enough to speak it within your colleagues, then be brave enough to share it with the parents too. But I know you're not going to, because
it's discriminatory and harmful.
that's right.
exactly.
So stop the labeling.
Yeah. And so give students what they need. We celebrate our rich diversity in our community, and we want to unite students instead of dividing them based on these different groups, and bring us together around our shared goals in quality education.
And unite our teachers.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Instead of dividing among the
are
teachers.
you in this camp? Are you in that camp?
Of this thought camp or
Yeah. And I used to, when I was in Ames, in one table, I will have kids from different nations, and that was so cool to be in front of this many nations at once. But when I was talking to them, I never told them, you're here because you're ESL. No, you're here because you need help with the language.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm working with international students. That's what I'm working with. But I never told them, like, yes, you're here because you're part of the ESL program. Yes, they were. But I wasn't putting that label onto them or for them to hear. I was like, no, you're here because you need help with the language.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Right.
And let's work with the language.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, lots of changes coming through in education, so we're all going to have to keep our eye on, both parents, educators, how this continues to unfold, especially in the Ames School District. And with that, we want to encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, join the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts, because it's together that we build a thriving community in Ames and Central Iowa.